This regular meeting of the Bellevue School District Board of Directors is called to order with me doing echo on my computer. For March 13th, 2025. So we will start with our opening items, which starts with the roll call.
Phil Block.
Carolyn Watson.
Cindy Rogan.
Monica Webster.
Jay Norris.
Kelly Aramaki.
Okay, next is the introduction of the students, and I usually rely on Chief of Staff John Harrison.
And I'm going to, excuse me, thank you, President Watson, delegate my responsibilities to Odell Middle School's Assistant Principal, Dr. Mary Colon, to introduce our student.
Okay, great.
Good evening, thank you. I'd like to introduce Rohan Ahuja, who is an 8th grade student at Odell Middle School.
Okay, so first, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes.
All right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, great. And then next, we have the land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples, who include the Duwamish, Muckleshoot, and Snoqualmie peoples. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. We reflect on the historic context that brings us to reside on this land and accept responsibility to interrupt erasure. We commit to an ongoing partnership with the Snoqualmie tribe as we listen to, learn from, and lead with their guidance.
Okay, thank you. And now it's time for your student update, and we're happy to hear whatever it is you would like to tell us.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Aramaki, and everyone present. My name is Rohan, and I am a proud 8th grade Viking from Odell Middle School. Thank you for this opportunity to share my journey through BSD and my experience at Odell. My time at Odell has been incredibly enriching. Thanks to leaders like my principal, Dr. Potts, his team, and the dedicated teachers who, despite their impressive credentials, choose to teach at public schools. Being part of the advanced learning cohort further enhances this experience as it challenges us to push our limits and brings out the best in each of us. Among the many opportunities at Odell, I want to share my experience with the debate club. This club, led by Interlake students who are formal Odell debaters, trains us for public forum debate competitions. These tournaments, held at Seattle universities, are a big deal. Not realizing just how big of a deal, I joined the club, confident that I knew what I was doing. I researched, I wrote my case, and I walked into my first tournament feeling prepared to bring glory to Odell. But then reality struck. I lost my first debate, I won my second, I lost my third, and I won my fourth. 2 wins, 2 losses. Uncompromisingly average, not exactly the glory I had hoped for. I was disappointed, but I was determined to improve. My coaches tricked me into working harder, researching more, writing more, and understanding the topic more deeply for the next tournament. With this renewed effort, I went to my next tournament only to lose every single round. I was in crisis. I had already worked harder. What more could I possibly do? It was then I realized something that President Kennedy once said. Every accomplishment starts with the decision to try, and that those who dare to fail miserably can achieve greatly. I didn't need my coaches to push me this time. Because of the lessons I had learned from them, my teachers, and my peers, I took a step back. I reflected on my debate style, studied skilled debaters, and committed myself to improve it. In November of last year, I won all 4 of my debates. I received an award for winning the debate and one for being one of the best speakers. But this story isn't just mine. It's the story of Odell students. At the award ceremony, not only did I win, but Odell dominated. On the surface, it seems like the club, the Interlake students, and my own work that went into the debate were at the roots of my wins. Yes, this all counts. But what counts even more is what is instilled in the Odell students by teachers like Mrs. Black and Ms. Canal, who are my social studies teachers that inspired me to do this. Mrs. Black's class was by no means easy, but what made it worth doing was her singular passion for what she taught. It was Mrs. Black's spirit of excellence, not only in her own work, but in us, the students. I am proud to say that at Odell, this spirit of excellence is the rule, not the exception. And it was this role that led me to join the debate club in the 7th grade and persevere to further refine myself and contribute to Odell's legacy of excellence. With that, I'll leave you with one final thought from President Kennedy. At Odell, students push and challenge themselves. They choose to do things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And I'm an 8th grader at Odell, and I'm proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now next we have acknowledgements. Okay, so our acknowledgements for these upcoming weeks are, it's Music in Our Schools Month, National Developmental Disabilities Month, National Nutrition Month, Social Work Month, Women's History Month, Youth Art Month. On the 2nd, we had Read Across America Day. The 3rd to the 7th was the National School Breakfast Week. The 3rd to the 7th was the National School Social Work Week. The 3rd to the 7th was the National World Language Week. The 5th was Ash Wednesday. The 8th was International Women's Day. The 13th, which is today, starts Purim, and the 14th is Holi. Okay, next we have the approval of the agenda, and I'm going to make a motion that we approve the agenda. Would anybody second it?
Second.
All right. Would anybody like to discuss that? No? Let me call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so everyone said aye, so the motion carries. Okay, next we have the consent agenda, and I would like a motion from somebody to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Anybody?
Second.
Okay. Would anybody like to discuss the consent agenda further?
I'd just like to acknowledge that we did receive an update to one item just on the values for a travel trip. That was
Oh, yeah.
updated.
Yeah, we did. Okay. And with that, let me say, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Nobody's opposed, so let's say the motion carries. Okay, now we're up to superintendent updates. So Dr. Aramaki,
Okay.
take it away.
So thank you. After hearing Rohan speak, I feel like I should just have him come up here and do it for me, which he didn't get to hear. But Rohan, if you're listening, or if you listen back on this, I mean, seriously, he probably could give the spending reduction plan and everything. So that was pretty darn awesome. Okay, I just have a few updates because pretty much the whole meeting is going to be me presenting on our financial situation and then setting the board up so that you can vote on our spending reduction plan. But I do have just a few things to share. Let me see. The first one is there's just so many cool things happening in our community. These are some pictures from Sherwood Forest Community Night. I didn't get to go, but we had some of our communications folks that went there. But these celebrations just happen all around our school district, kids getting together, celebrating their community, the diversity of their community. And I just want to shout out Sherwood Forest. They do this a lot where they bring people together and really celebrate their kids. And you can see the fun that they're having. Yeah, so I think I missed a slide because there was supposed to be another like celebration slide before the coyote slide, but I just wanted to acknowledge in the news, we always try to stay out of the news in general, but we did have some coyotes on Somerset Hill and running around Factoria, but it sounds like the situation is handled. So when I originally put up the picture of the coyotes, I had 2 wolves on it. And so I just want to, this is just a warning about the designer function of PowerPoint that is not always accurate. So somebody caught that they were wolves and corrected it for me. Today, I'm going to be talking about where we are with our budget situation. And then this afternoon, I'm going to be sharing this afternoon after the meeting, my finance team is going to be taking us through kind of the January financials. And I'll just, this is just the preview of it, but basically just want to remind the community that we're in a pretty dire budget situation. And we had a meeting with our legislators today, which I appreciate them so much. But I showed them this list and I said, if you look at this list, these are the school districts that are in the most challenge right now in the state. The worst on top, the not worst on the bottom. You can see Shelton, Marysville, and Marysville, as you know, has been taken over by the state. And then Bellevue is number 3 out of 295 school districts. But on this list, you'll also see North Shore is there. You'll see that Vancouver, Washington is there. Yakima is there. And so when you look at this list, there are large districts, there are small districts, there are affluent districts, there are property poor districts. There are a whole range of diversity among these districts, and yet all of us are struggling with our finances. And so I just want to show this as a reminder to the community of the challenges that we're facing. So I'll go into that in more detail in a little bit. Related to that, this is a picture on Monday. I was at a convening of superintendents from around the state. So these are superintendents who are in some ways connected to the University of Washington, but our goal from Bellevue to Vancouver to Yakima to Richland, our goal together is to advocate for fully funding of public education. So I'm a part of this effort to see if we can get ample and equitable funding to our schools. And I feel like that we have a good opportunity for that to happen during this legislative session. And then lastly, I just want to acknowledge Michael Muho. Many people know that he is a student, was a freshman at Sammamish who had passed away in a car accident, and our community has been grieving. Educators, we always remind each other, and they always remind me that when a student passes away, no matter at which school, people are impacted all around the system. He went to Ardmore, he went to Highland, and then he had a bright start to his education at Sammamish High School. And just talking with educators at Ardmore, they just remember him as being this most amazing, amazing child. There was a memorial service that many staff went to yesterday, and I guess a lot of our staff were able to be there to support his family and to celebrate his life. Derek Richardson, the principal, and Rocio Gonzalez, one of the ITCLs, Jessica Soto, the office manager, they went to Michael's home right after the event and to support the family. And the Sammamish team has really wrapped their arms around his family. I also want to shout out the MHAT team, our mental health assistance team, and the counselors, because when somebody is suffering in Bellevue, everybody rallies. And so MHAT counselors from all the different schools flooded Ardmore, Highland, and Sammamish just to provide care for the kids and care for the staff. We have the most incredible counseling support here, social workers, and they really did an incredible thing to support the community during this time. I also want to say that Michael was part of Rainier Athletes, and so he was a budding, just academic and athlete, and was excited about trying out for soccer. The teachers mentioned that he was a smart kid, had an incredible sense of humor, loved playing soccer, wanted to play for Sammamish. That he was a really great student and that his loss is felt in the community. There's been, loss in the district. We lost a former Bellevue High School student, and we've had some kids who have lost their parents. And so I just want to say that amidst all of the stuff that's going on with the budget and all of that stuff, it all gets grounded in our values of life and our children and our community when things like this happen. And so just as a community, I want to celebrate Michael and honor his life and just give comfort to all of those who are grieving. So with that is the end of the superintendent comments.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for public comments, and I'll call on Chief of Staff John Harrison to organize those.
Yeah, we have a number of speakers, student speakers here to talk about robotics, which is fantastic. And we have one online speaker. We'll put the slide up in just a minute here, but did you want to do your public comment guidelines first, President Watson?
Oh, sure. I just like to remind everybody before we do these that we'd like to hold everyone to the same standard of civility that the board imposes on itself, and that also, because of the length of meetings and things, we limit each public comment to 2 minutes. So let's make sure that our comments are not libelous or slanderous, unwarranted invasions of privacy. Comments should not be obscene or indecent pursuant to the Federal Communications Act or any ruling of the FCC. The comments should not violate school district policy or procedure related to harassment, intimidation, bullying, or discrimination. Comments should not incite an unlawful act on school premises or violate a lawful school regulation, and comments should not create a material and a substantial disruption of the orderly operation of the board meeting. But outside of all of that, but please feel free to say whatever you like.
Do we have our slide? It's coming. There we go. So we do have a couple of groups. First of all, let me check, is Dawn Abbott here? I don't believe Dawn checked in. We'll check one more time towards the end. But we have a couple of groups. I'm just going to remind the groups that I would like you to introduce yourselves for the record. And just keep in mind that even though you're a group, you still only have 2 minutes for your comments. So we will start with the first group. And again, please make sure that you state your name for the record.
Hello, esteemed members of the board. My name is Ian.
My name is Indu.
And my name is Sabella.
We're here today representing the 2412 Robototes out of Sammamish High School. Just this past weekend, we hosted our annual Sammamish Robotics Competition event. And our team would like to extend a gracious thank you to the board, the school district, and the Bellevue Schools Foundation for their ongoing support of robotics, as well as the support you've given us to open our doors to schools across the state and teams all across the state.
Okay, so just some numbers. We were actually able to host 32 teams at our FRC competition and 15 teams at our FLA competition. It was so amazing to see all the love around robotics, especially like the little kids. They had a great time showing us their robot, and we were so excited to host. Thank you again so much for all your support.
Overall, this competition was very successful for many of the teams on the Bellevue Alliance. And for the Robototes specifically, we were third in qualifiers and we were second Alliance captain. Along with that, we also won the Impact Award, which basically recognizes sustained excellence and impact within the FIRST community that we have made. And we are so honored to have this award.
Okay, so Team 2412 and the rest of the Bellevue Alliance wants to personally thank the Bellevue Schools Foundation for giving us your eternal support. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Some kind of speed award for that. Okay.
Okay, we'll sit. Hello, esteemed board. My name is Sophia Hong.
And I'm Flora.
And we're here representing Newport Robotics Group, also known as NRG 948. First, we would like to extend our sincerest gratitude for the board for so graciously letting us speak this evening. In the short time that we have, we'd like to quickly go over our successes as a team at Sammamish's district competition last weekend, which they just told you about.
Yes, so this weekend as a team, NRG was in an alliance with the International Schools Titan Robotics team, and we ranked 10th after the qualifying matches, earning us 46 district points in this season already. Additionally, we won the Excellence in Engineering Award, which commemorated our professional design process, which was really satisfying after the countless design team meetings and overtime shop hours that our team has put in over the last 7 months of this season. None of this would have been possible without the gracious help of the school board and institutional support and funding put towards robotics.
Okay. For STEM interested high schoolers like us in NRG and beyond, the continued bedrocks that the school board continues to provide, like consistent funding and the STEAMnasium, which in the case of NRG was our only access to a full-size FRC team, the importance cannot be understated, and we extend our sincerest gratitudes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Hello, esteemed board. My name is Lucia Liao, the Chief Strategy Officer at Bellevue High's robotics team. This past weekend, we made it to finals for the first time since 2008, which is even before I was born. Due to our small team size and our demographics consisting of all underclassmen, with the exception of 3 seniors and 1 mentor, we struggled to get a working bot before the season started. And throughout qualifiers, on day 1, we didn't win a single match. However, all the hard work we put on our robot paid off, and teams like Sammamish's Robototes recognized our good defenses and our hard work and gave us a chance. Thanks to their generosity, they selected us into an alliance with XBot and and these are 2 very good teams, and together we made it to finals. We weren't like magically able to make it to finals though. A lot of this is thanks to some of the relationships we're able to build through social meetings, like at faculties in like the STEAMnasium, and the support we get from you all to like be able to run a small team like us. So on behalf of my team, I'd like to thank you all, the school board, for supporting us on our road to finals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, school board and audience. I'm Anne-Marie Clark. I'm one of the advocacy mentors for Sammamish High School's robotics, both the FRC team, which makes the big robots, and the FTC team that makes the smaller robots. So as they were saying, they had a great event last weekend. All 6 Bellevue teams were there, and in the finalists, 2/3 of the team on the field were from Bellevue. So it takes a lot to make a powerhouse team, but it takes a real lot to make a powerhouse region. And so we have a lot to be thankful for all the support, but we should acknowledge there's a lot of work by a lot of people went into making this region known for its robotics. So we should clap for all our volunteers. Lots of volunteer hours went into that. And also, I want to remind you that robotics is just not about robotics, that we've had kids down in Olympia advocating for school funding. There were kids down there today advocating for school funding for OSPI and for special education, meeting with our representatives. They were there earlier a couple weeks ago with the PTA Focus Day, advocating for education. They have invited legislators to the event. They are making their voices as students heard, and we should encourage them to do that, because I think the students' voice in this funding thing is very potent. That it's one thing to have adults come and say, you're impacting kids, but to have kids come and say, the cut and the lack of support for special education is impacting me is very, very important. So, and thank you for your support, and thank the Bellevue School Foundation for their support.
Thank you for all the speakers on robotics. And always strikes me whenever I hear our students talk about robotics is how collaborative and how sportsmanlike they are, which leads me to believe that some of our more traditional sports and activities could learn a lot from our robotics team. So thank you. Just to check to see if Dawn is here. Okay, we're going to move to our online speaker, Christy Schlesinger. Jess, can you make sure you enable her? Thank you.
Christy, we've unmuted your mic. Christy, are you there?
It doesn't appear as though Christy is with us. Is that accurate, Jess?
She's here. We've unmuted her mic, but she doesn't seem to be speaking.
It looks like her mic might be muted, but it's enabled.
We'll try one more time and then perhaps we can move on.
She does have she put her hand up, so.
Yeah, and we see that she's online. We can see her, the little circle with KS.
Christy, try to refresh the page and maybe try to unmute from then.
There it works. Can you hear me now?
Yes, did you do that?
Okay, great. It wasn't allowing me to sign on. All right, good evening, school board directors, Dr. Aramaki, and community. My name is Christy Schlesinger, and I have 2 students in the district and serve as the Bellevue PTSA Council Advocacy Director. The state of Washington continues to fall short of its paramount constitutional duty to fully fund basic K-12 education. Since 2020, funding gaps have cost Bellevue $167 million. The only way to close this gap is through legislative action, and we've had so many parents and students taking action so far this year. We need everybody's voice to make change. The Bellevue PTSA Council stands united with teachers and our district leadership to make these bills pass. We have 2 bills in the Senate Bills 5263 and 5192 that have passed out of the Senate committees and are now starting the long process in the House. These could bring an estimated $7 to $10 million to Bellevue alone. And this is where we need your help. Visit our website, WAK12.org, to receive action alerts. 2 things that are coming up will be to sign in pro on these 2 bills or submit written testimony as to why this funding is critical. Also, our legislators from districts 41 and 48 will be hosting in-person town halls next weekend. We need to flood these town halls with students and families to demand full funding for special education, MSOCs, and transportation. Find more information on the website. If we want real progress, we must advocate for legislative action. The future of our schools depends on it. Together, we can make sure Olympia delivers on its responsibility to fully fund education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. And that concludes our public comments, President Watson.
Okay, so now it's time for board business. And the first thing in board business is, because we're not having any reports, the first thing in board business is going to be approval of the spending reduction plan. I believe there'll be an introduction to that by Dr. Aramaki.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, before we have you vote on the reduction plan, I do, for the sake of the community and for the board as well, just go over, kind of remind people of kind of a number of things. I want to talk a little bit about the situation that we're in financially. I want to just remind people of the community engagement process that we went through to develop the spending reduction plan. I'm going to then talk about the reductions again with the revisions that we made this week. And then I'm going to go through and share just some really relevant kind of additional information that pertain to kind of finances and school districts, especially as they came out of questions that community members had. So I'm going to cover just a few things like that. And I'm trying to do it as quickly as possible. But I do want to just make sure, because this is a big deal, trying to remove $20 million or 5% out of our budget. And so I just want to make sure we do due diligence so that our community understands exactly what's happening and why. Okay. All right. So just a reminder of the timeline. We started these conversations in January. We started with community, like talking to community about what they value, what's important to them, listening to students like the robotics students talk about activities and things like that. And then we created a proposal that we presented to the board from that input, which we delivered on February 6th. From there, we then went from input to feedback and gave the community opportunity to give feedback on the proposal. That culminated last week with the open public comment session at the special board meeting. And then from Thursday to Monday, I spent time with my team putting together revisions that we could make to the final plan based on the feedback that we heard. And then that brings us to today. I showed this earlier, but this is just to remind our community that we are in a dire situation. We are number 3 on the list of school districts in most kind of need of support when it comes to finances. And it's based on this. Those indicators are primarily based on our ending fund balance, or like our savings account, how much money that we have in our kind of cash account to be able to pay our bills. And so when you look at this slide here, the lines, the top lines to the bottom basically go from 5 years ago to current year. And so you can see in 2017, we had quite a bit of money. We were up there around $30 million. And the lines go up and down like that because that's how when we're paying our bills, when money's coming in, the money we get from the state and from our local levy doesn't come in evenly every single month. It's a little bit more sometimes, it's a little bit less, but we're paying our bills every single month. And so you can see that our bank account basically goes up and down like that. But as we started spending more and more of our savings, you can see that the lines got lower and lower, closer and closer to zero. With our most current year, the green line, the dark green shows our actuals, and then the dotted line shows what we're projecting to happen the rest of this year. We start going below zero, and we started going below zero last year. One of the most important things I want to show here is that gray line is where we have to get back to. We must get back to a place where no matter how high or low we get, we do not dip below zero. We have to have enough money in our bank account to be able to pay our bills. And so when you look at the gray line, that ending fund balance started at around 30 and made it down to 20. And so we have to get our fund balance back up to those levels in order to not drop below zero. Because if you look at the orange line starts around between 15 and 20, it's about 17, and we go negative over the course of the year. So we must have at least 20, if not $30 million in our savings to be able to pay our bills. I'm trying to advance the slides, but I think we're off the, can we just check and see? Okay, great, thanks. So a reminder of how we got here, and it really is a perfect storm, but there's kind of the state factors and then there's local factors. The state factors, just to remind people, there's been a decline in percent of funding to education in our state budget. That little infographic up in the top left shows you a picture of how in 2019, over 50% of the state's budget went to public education. But in 2024, 43% of the state's budget goes to public education. So we've seen a decline in percent of funding for public education. And at the same time, coming out of the pandemic, we've seen skyrocketing operating costs and inflation. Everything is more expensive. The power for the lights, fuel for the buses, food for lunches, everything is getting more expensive. In addition to that, the funding from the state is insufficient for special education, for nurses, for mental health supports, for administrators. The state has also capped local levy dollars. So they've basically limited what local jurisdictions can fund for their schools. So Bellevue has been kept at a very low rate in order to fund our own kind of education here in Bellevue. And then the last thing that I'll mention is unfunded mandates. And so there's a number of things that the state asks us to pay for, but that they don't give us funding for. On top of all of the state issues, we have local issues, declining enrollment post-COVID. We have had challenges with our budget assumptions, like our basically budgets are built on assumptions or guesses, best guesses, but how much we think operating costs are going to be, how much we think fuel is going to cost, how much we think our collective bargaining agreements are going to cost. We had the end of ESSER funds, which is the kind of the COVID relief funds, and yet we continued to pay for our ESSER investments like mental health. And at the same time, the needs that students had coming out of COVID didn't go down. The needs of students went up. We had budget and spending oversight challenges that we've been working on and trying to correct it this year. And then the last thing I'll just mention is we've not had adequate communication and transparency for the school board, who is ultimately accountable for the budget. And so we've been working to fix that this year. So all of those factors together create what we just saw in our fund balance going down and in our budget woes here in Bellevue. This is just a picture that people have seen before, but our gaps in state funding have been huge. Since 2020, BSD has been underfunded for special education by $133 million. Since 2020, Bellevue School District has been underfunded for materials, supplies, and operating costs by $29 million. Since 2020, the Bellevue School District has been underfunded for transportation by almost $4.5 million. Those are just those buckets. If you look at all of the rest of them, you can see why not just Bellevue, but school districts around the state are struggling to pay their bills. So as we've been figuring out how to cut $20 million from our spending, we wanted to prioritize community engagement. We had two major phases that I talked about earlier, an input phase in order to help me design the plan, and then a feedback phase to make sure that there weren't any fatal flaws in the plan. And I want to thank the community for giving input and for giving feedback. And I am hoping in the effort of building trust in this community that people felt heard with the feedback that they gave. This is just a picture of the community input sessions that we did in January. And then this is a picture of the community feedback sessions that we did just this past month, including doing a survey and having open public comment last week. We made some revisions to the plan based on what we heard from students, staff, and families. The first one was mental health. Everybody talked about the importance of mental health. And so we restored 5 mental health counselors to make sure that we had enough staff to provide direct services to students at high school and to provide coordination of mental health support for students at middle school. We restored as many family engagement specialists as possible. We built in transportation efficiencies. We're going to adjust some of the bell times in order to save about $200,000 in fuel costs. We adjusted our school-based administrative support. We committed to further central office reductions in order to protect as much of the investments in the schools. And then we committed to trying to find ways to maintain summit support at schools. And so this is mostly important to people who are impacted by Summit, but Summit is a program at our comprehensive high schools where students that have mental health crises or issues have a place to go so that they can stay in the school building and not fall too far behind academically. So based on that, this is just the picture of what the board is going to approve. These are the overview of the reductions. We're planning to reduce from central office between $6.1 and $6.8 million. We're planning to reduce ESSER funded investments from about $3.2 to $3.5 million. We are going to cut school-based investments from about $10.5 million to $13.8 million. That provides us with a savings of about $20 million to $24 million. So we have ranges there because we just don't know how things are going to play out with how many students are going to be coming to school and things like that. And so we wanted to make sure we had a little bit of flexibility, but our goal is going to be to save as much money as we possibly can through these reductions. A little bit more specifically, I just want to show kind of the changes that we made, but we originally said we're going to cut between 5 and 8 cabinet and director level positions, but we are going to cut at the top range. So we're going to try to do 7 to 8. And then with the transportation bell time adjustments, that's going to save us $200,000. So that adjusts the range a little bit for central office. Under ESSER funding, these are a lot of the supports and services that our kids have really come to rely on, but that we just simply cannot afford. The major changes here are we were planning to cut somewhere between 15 and 19.5 mental health counselors, and we're going to preserve 5 of them. So we're going to cut 14.5 of them. Family engagement, we're going to cut 4 of them and keep 6. So those are the adjustments for ESSER. And then under school-based reductions, is just more clarity around the assistant principals. We're looking at cutting our assistant principals in schools that have less than 700 students, with a few exceptions. We're going to keep 0.5 assistant principals at our Title I funded schools, and we're going to keep 0.5 assistant principals at our 2 choice schools. Clarity, because Tillicum is kind of right on the border, but we're going to maintain a full-time assistant principal at Tillicum Middle School. So. But the rest, we are going to be reducing 14 assistant principals, primarily at the elementary school level. And that saves us between $10.4 and $13.8 million. So together, all of those savings will give us somewhere between $20 and $24 million in reduced expenditures next year. A reminder of what we're not going to be cutting, because it's good to just know like what is going to stay the same. We're keeping our 7-period day, and I was just reminded today of how important that can be for kids, because if a student has a challenge or is not able to do a class or something happens, there's enough buffer to make sure that kids can have their 24 credits. So keeping the 7-period day, which comes with all the electives, we're keeping our AP and IB classes, we're keeping advanced learning services. We're maintaining our really popular career technical education classes. We're keeping our language programs, choice schools. We're protecting athletics, activities, extracurriculars, and clubs. And just seeing all the robotics students here, you can just see how important those things are to students. We're keeping our elementary specialists, library, art, music, PE. We're maintaining our elementary counselors. And then a lot of nurses had come to the last meeting and, wondering if we're going to cut nurses, but we're maintaining nursing. So I did just add that to that list. If our robotics kids who are advocating at the legislature, our PTSA leaders who are advocating at the legislature, if we're able to get this done this year in the 2025 legislative session, these are the things that we're going to prioritize in restoring. The first one, we're going to restore our fund balance to $20 million. $15 million is absolutely essential to have in cash savings. And I'll just say, as you can see in the chart that I showed, that is primarily so that we can pay our bills. It's not so that we have just extra money lying around. It is to be able to pay our bills, which includes paychecks and things like that. From that, our next priority is school-based staffing. We want to protect our teachers, our classrooms, class sizes, things that impact students directly. That'll be our next priority. And then after that, we heard a lot of people wanting to make sure that we invest as much as we can in student behavior supports, mental health supports, which we will do. And then our strategic plan investments, things that we want to build out over the next 5 years, and then operations. Lots of comments last time about how we don't really see operations unless things go wrong. And so we want to make sure that we have enough funding for operations so that our schools can run efficiently. We can get kids to and from school on buses and things like that. Here's some other just relevant information that I want to share. I can probably do sessions on this, I think, after this in the community for people who want to know more. But these are just some kind of frequently asked questions, budget basics that people may want to know. The first one is this. This is kind of a school funding 101. We've showed this before to people, but our education is funded in 3 primary buckets. So not all money is the same. The first kind of bucket is general funds. These are the money that we pay day-to-day operations, teacher salaries, administrator salaries, materials and supplies. That's the first bucket, and that's the place that we have the greatest challenge. The second bucket is capital and technology. That's paying for laptops, for software, paying for building maintenance. We have quite a bit of money in that bucket, but we cannot spend any of that money on teacher salaries and day-to-day operations. The third bucket is buildings or our capital bonds. That money is specifically set aside for the building of new buildings. Right now we're remodeling the building for the big picture school. We're looking at building the international school. That comes from capital bonds. None of that money can be used for day-to-day operations. So where we are struggling in our finances is the money that we get in our general funds, which comes from, some of it is state funding, some of it is from our EP&O levy, which is the enrichment levy, whatever P&O stands for, and then any federal grants that we get. So I just point that out to say people wanted to know, like, what can't we use money that we have in capital or technology to pay for teachers and things like that, and we simply cannot mix the funding. The next thing is there's just kind of some critical things about school budgeting that are important. The first one is the district budget has to balance, and we have to have a fund balance. We cannot run a school district without having cash savings in order to pay our bills. We have local levies which help, but there are restrictions to how we can spend them. Class sizes, a lot of people have questions about class sizes, but class sizes are driven by the number of students and the amount of money that we have for teachers. And so it's not really about the size of school that dictates how big classes are going to be. But like at the elementary school level, for example, class sizes are pretty much driven by how many kids are in the grade level. So if you have, how many kids are in kindergarten, how many kids are in first grade. In Bellevue, people talk about this a lot, but we pay high property taxes, and a lot of it goes to education. The important thing to note is that not all of the money that we spend that we pay in our property taxes goes to Bellevue. So when people think about how much money we're paying in property taxes, a lot of it goes to the state. Not all of it comes back to Bellevue. Capital funds, again, for technology and buildings, we collect that from our local levy, but it has to go towards building maintenance and things like that, and technology. It can't be used for classroom teachers. And then the last one is Bellevue Schools Foundation, PTSAs. I mean, so many kids shouted out the Bellevue Schools Foundation and their support for robotics. We do rely on them, absolutely, to fund things like robotics and mental health. They can't fill the gap in public education, but they definitely help in their own ways, and we appreciate that. Here are some FAQs. People want to know, like, if we're going to cut 15 mental health counselors, how is Bellevue going to support student mental health? And so just a few things. We're going to maintain 5 MHAT counselors. That's going to provide direct but limited services to students at high school, at all the 4 comprehensive high schools and the 2 choice schools. They are also going to provide coordination for middle schools, and they're going to help with coordination of mental health supports with the community. We are going to see some reduced screening. Right now, we do screening 7th grade, 8th, 9th, and 10th. So we screen a lot of grade levels. We're probably going to reduce that screening to 1 grade level at middle school and 1 grade level at high school, so that we can free up more capacity for direct services. We're going to expand our partnerships with Youth Eastside Services, with Asian Counseling Referral Services, CMAR, Consejo, and Sound Mental Health. So there's a lot of organizations that provide support, and we're going to see what we can do with them in our schools to provide mental health supports for kids. And then we're going to maintain Care Solace, which is a service that we have that helps coordinate, connect families, staff, and students to mental health supports in the community. There's questions about advanced learning, like, is it cost efficient? Do we need to have advanced learning? And these are just a few points about that. We have regional self-contained services for advanced learning at 4 elementary schools, Cherry Crest, Medina, Woodridge, and Somerset, 2 of our middle schools, Tyee and Odell, and then at Interlake High School. Advanced learning services for students who choose to stay in their neighborhood schools or who qualify for domain-specific services are also provided, and we are not changing that. So we're going to maintain our advanced learning services. It's part of basic education for students. There are no significant additional costs associated with advanced learning services. In fact, the state provides approximately $700,000 in categorical advanced learning funds to support advanced learning curriculum development, testing, materials, and teacher support. Transportation, we do provide for advanced learning services because advanced learning, just like special education, is considered basic education. People ask, are choice schools and language programs value adding and cost efficient? So people want to know, like, we have all these choice programs. Is it expensive? Is it worth the cost? And so just a few comments about that. The first one is a feature of the Bellevue School District education is the vast portfolio of learning experiences options that we have for our students. A lot of people move here because we have options for kids. And in our new strategic plan, for example, opportunities to develop bilingualism in this global world is a priority for our global community. Other than for Big Picture School, which has its own kind of staffing model based on its unique design, the staffing is actually more efficient at our choice schools, International, Jingmei, Puesta del Sol, and the main driver for the efficiencies is that we can control the enrollment at those buildings. Choice attracts families and increases enrollment, which increases district revenues. Jingmei and International School have the longest wait lists in the district. Puesta del Sol has about 116 students from out of the district, which generates almost $2 million in revenue. Our Japanese program, which is slated to start this fall, has 72 students already enrolled in kindergarten and first grade with 26 kids on the wait list. Arabic and Korean both have wait lists for kindergarten for fall 2025. So these programs, they are drawing in students, and because it's taught in the classroom and not an add-on, we're just using the funding that we would get to pay for the teachers in those programs. Transportation is provided only to the choice schools, Jingmei, Puesta del Sol, and we do that for equity of access. But we do it as efficiently as possible. So we don't drive around to every neighborhood. We have hubs that we pick kids up at for those 2 schools. We have now the 2 schools, Puesta and Jingmei, are both centrally located, which has increased the efficiency of transportation. And then finally, I'll say, and then transportation for the heritage programs, Arabic, Japanese, is not district-wide. So those schools' parents, if they want to join those, they have to find their way to the schools themselves, which we communicate with to parents ahead of time, which is why we've also tried to put the language program somewhat in the neighborhood where most of the kids live as much as possible, like our dual language programs. And then finally, the new Bellevue Discovery Family Partnership Program, which we're launching this coming fall. We're connecting it to the Bellevue Digital Discovery. We've already enrolled about 70 new to district students for fall 2025, which is going to bring in about $1 million in revenue with minimal additional cost to Bellevue Digital Discovery. So using the current digital discovery staff. Most importantly, this family partnership program creates a much needed innovative service to families who want to engage in flexible learning, including home-based learning in partnership with the Bellevue School District. Another question is why start new programs? And so this one is, I mean, I've kind of touched on some of these things, but school district funding is based on how many kids you have in the school district. So if the dollars and cents answer to why start new programs is because it brings in families. In some cases, it brings in families outside of Bellevue. In some cases, it brings in families who live in Bellevue who might choose private school or homeschool. And in many cases, it attracts families to choose Bellevue if they're moving here from out of state. Since COVID, Bellevue has seen a decline in enrollment similar to the rest of the region. And I say region, it's King County, but also up and down the West Coast. But Bellevue was one of the only districts to see an increase in enrollment this past year, driven in large part by the newer programs. And then lastly, this concept of for our future world, we need to keep building a district for the future and not just focusing on cutting programs. Because if you get into the spiral of cutting and not building, we will start to see more and more people choosing other. I mean, families that live in Bellevue, many of them have choices. And if all they see is the cutting of programs, the cutting of services, they will choose out, which is going to exacerbate our problem. And so we have to build for what parents want now and into the future. Can we sell or rent buildings? The district has vacant properties and school buildings that are valuable assets. We can sell property. However, the proceeds are required by state law to be used for capital or building expenditures and cannot be used for operating costs or general fund costs. So looking at those three buckets, the selling of capital or the selling of buildings must go to that. We can't use it for operating costs. In addition, if you sell a building, it's just a one-time cost. The one exception is that when you do sell a building and you put that money into your account, the interest collected on that can be used for general funds. So that is an exception. And the revenue that we get from property rentals can and is used for general fund expenditures. So when we rent out our buildings for the Japanese school on Saturday, or we have a Hindi program on a Sunday at Interlake High School, that rental money does come into our general fund. I think I'm almost done. So is preschool cost efficient and could we make more money on preschool? That is a question that came up. And I'll just say preschool operates cost neutral and is primarily tuition funded. We do receive some state funding for lower income families and for students with disabilities. And the Bellevue Schools Foundation generously provides grant assistance to support families in need with tuition. We have about 14 preschool programs right now, but it's not a money-making thing, I'll just say. It's cost neutral. We're trying to keep the costs down so that families have access to preschool. This one, do we leverage partnerships, purchasing power, and philanthropy? So just a few things. We have really strong partnerships with the cities, Bellevue, Clyde Hill, Medina, for example. Local nonprofits like Jubilee Reach, Bellevue LifeSpring, Rainier Athletes, Boys and Girls Club, Eastside Pathways, and post-secondary institutions like Bellevue College. These partnerships, they do bring in additional revenue and supports for students, and we're going to continue to grow those partnerships. A lot of families asked about purchasing power, and so I'll just mention that we rely on purchasing consortiums for materials, supplies, food, and otherwise. We are part of the Puget Sound Joint Purchasing Cooperative. So I spent a lot of time kind of looking up some of this stuff just to make sure that we have information. But it's about 130 school districts. That's a lot of kids. We work together to provide collective buying power and negotiation power to purchase food, bread, milk, produce, and all of those things. We belong to KCDA, which I think, aren't you? Yeah. Anyways, on the board. And KCDA is kind of a collective of public school districts which offer centralized procurement services and savings from materials and supplies. Okay. And then we also partner with companies and philanthropic organizations already. Amazon supports our family hubs. The Bellevue Schools Foundation, which I've talked about, is one of our most important partners. They have been dedicated to supporting BSD initiatives and innovation since 1979. I think they're one of the oldest, if not the oldest, kind of schools foundations in the state. But they help coordinate the philanthropic giving from individuals and corporations. And I'm just calling them out mainly because on April 19th at the Westin Hotel, they are having a big kind of auction fundraiser. One of the things that you can bid on is I'm going to auction off a tour of some of our most innovative programs, horticulture, glass blowing. And if you get it, you will be able to do a glass blowing session with kids. And then we're going to allow you to put together some floral arrangements in our horticulture program. So we're going to show off some of the things that are the most joyful and fun in our school district and try to raise money for mental health and for robotics and things like that. What cuts have we made so far at central office and what cuts are we expecting? So just a couple of things to note about this. We've reduced teaching and learning directors and executive directors from 26, which was the high in 2020, to 20 in 2024. That's about a 23% cut over the past few years. But this coming year, we're going to reduce another 4 leadership positions in teaching and learning to reach about, so we'll get down to 16. So from 26 to 16. So we are really committed to making sure that we preserve funding at the schools. The remaining central office leadership reductions will include some operational departments. So We don't have specifics on that right now. We will announce those specifics once we've talked with the effective personnel. But I want the community to know that we are going to prioritize protecting key services and supports to schools as much as possible. I'll put out a new organizational chart that prioritizes service and support to students, schools, and families sometime after spring break. A couple things on the prototypical school model, just to talk to you about how the state funds. But we're basically funded on a theoretical school size. So they'll give us a certain amount of staffing and resources for an elementary school that is 400 kids. So 400 kids, you get about a principal, maybe 1.2 administrators. They fund middle schools based on the number of 432 kids and high schools based on 600. So if you're bigger, you get some more. If you're less, you get less. But that's kind of how they develop the model. The state in the prototypical model allocates a number of positions plus a dollar amount for each position, which is going to make sense when I explain it. So here's an example of the prototypical model, what we get from the state and what we fund. So when you look at elementary administrators, principals, and assistant principals, for the number of students that we have in our elementary schools, the state allocates 24.5 FTE, full-time equivalent, so 24.5 people. But the money that they give us is about $3.3 million. We currently have 32 administrators at elementary, and we spend $5.3 million. So our proposal brings our spending down to 20 administrators at elementary, which brings us to $3.3 million. So you can see we are right sizing our spending to match the allocation that we get from the state. MHAT high school counselors, the state gives nothing for mental health assistant team or support. We had 7 allocated to high schools this year, which is about $846,000. We're cutting high school down to 5, which is going to be still a $604,000 expenditure. So this line is important because for high school, we're somewhat keeping stable our investment in mental health, which is what people asked. They said our kids in the high school need it the most. So we're reducing high school from 7 to about 5, but you can see that we get nothing from the state. So we have to find $604,000 someplace. Elementary nurses, I just thought this one was interesting. But for our elementary schools, we get about 13 nurses. So we have 20, now how many elementary schools do we have? 60, thank you. I do know that, but I mean, I've been talking for a long time. So 16, but we get 13, which is about, they give us $1 million for that. We fund right now 8.8 teachers, nurses, which is about $1 million. So the amount of money that they give us for what they think is 13.6 nurses, it actually equates to about 8.8 nurses. And so we're keeping that stable, but we're trying to live within our means, within what the state allocates to us. And we think that what the state allocates is not enough. Family engagement specialists, they give us nothing. We have funded 10, but we're dropping it down to 6. So this kind of gives you an idea that the state funds what they think we need, and they give us the money for what they think it's going to cost. And it's not nearly enough for what we need, and the cost that the money that they give us is not nearly enough. This just kind of shows that, but these are the salaries. So for a principal, whether you're elementary principal, elementary assistant principal, high school assistant principal, they give us $136,000 per administrator. But if you look at the salaries that we pay $166 for an elementary principal, $145 for an elementary assistant principal, and on and on. And those salaries are the base salaries, the entry level salaries for an administrator. So you can see that we don't get enough compared to what we actually pay out. Guidance counselors, they give us $92,000 per guidance counselor. We pay $120,000 in salary. MHAT counselor, we talked about that one. School nurses, they give us $92,000. We pay $120,000. Family engagement coordinators or family engagement specialists, they give us $66,000. That's how much you would get for that role. We spend $71,000. So you can see, you just start adding up this budget gap. You can see where the problems lie. These are the bills. So Christy Schlesinger talked about this in public comment. there are two bills that made it out of the Senate. And these are the two bills that I'm keeping my eyes on that matter to me. Senate Bill 5263 is a special education bill that will, if it passes the House next and then is signed by the governor, that's $5 million a year that we would get in additional funds to support students with special needs. Material supplies operating costs, Senate Bill 5192. If that bill passes as is through the House and then gets signed by the governor, that would give us almost $2.5 million. That's $7.5 million that would come to Bellevue just from these two bills. And if you remember, we had big three bills. Transportation was included. That didn't make it out of either one of the houses. So these are the two that we're keeping our eyes on. We have to have these Senate numbers. This is going to matter greatly for our school district. And I'll just say, I'm very thankful to our two senators, Senator Wellman and Senator Slatter. Both of them have been champions for this and have been pushing hard to get these out of the Senate, which they did. And so we have an amazing House leaders as well, and we're asking them to find a way to push these bills through as is. My last two slides, one about kind of the humanity of all of this, and then one about the future. I just want to say, kind of as I wrap this up, that I acknowledge the human aspect and the human toll of cutting. And this is on top of everything that's happening in the world, everything that's happening in our country, all of the cuts that are coming from the federal government, all of the cuts that are happening at the state government level, all of the cuts that are happening in the business world. But all of this is taking a toll on people. I mean, I know that other people feel like I do, that when you wake up sometimes and you turn on the radio or you look at the news, it just is a weight on people. And I just want to acknowledge and let people know that we're talking about all these numbers, but first and foremost, this is about people's jobs. I mean, I think someone had mentioned to me about like when Boeing went through all of those big layoffs in the past, like all of these people with families that they're raising, not sure what they're going to be able to do, if they're going to be able to provide for their family, if they're going to be able to pay their rent or their mortgage. So every single job, of which we are going to be cutting about 150, is a person with a family and people that they care about. And I just want to acknowledge that we care about the humanity and the livelihoods of every single person. For people, whether they're losing their job or if they're staying, there's just all this kind of concern about workload and stress. And is this going to be possible? And so I just want to acknowledge that, like, that is a real thing. Sometimes you'll see the stuff like this on Instagram or Facebook, but just those things about how teachers are expected to give everything and not complain about it. And that is the life of an educator. And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that if you choose education that you have to sacrifice everything. And so I just want to acknowledge for our educators, our paraprofessionals, our administrators, there is valid concerns about workload and stress during this time and thinking about the future. I put family, I talked about that with livelihoods, but all of us, in addition to all of this that we're navigating here, we all have families that, with all of the joys and challenges that come with that, we think about Michael, who passed away, and his family, like that is on top of, like, that is kind of the central to all of us as human beings. And I just want to acknowledge that that is something that is for everybody, regardless of us talking about budget cuts. Unmet expectations, concerns about whether we can maintain the same service levels for our families and our kids. There's lots of concern that people have about, like, we have so many students and families in need. There was a time when we had like 10, 11% free reduced lunch. We're almost at 25%. That is almost 1 in 4 kids who qualify for free reduced lunch. And kids who don't qualify for free reduced lunch but are on the border, their parents hardly make anything and can barely manage to pay their bills here in Bellevue. So we have a lot of families and students that are paycheck to paycheck here in Bellevue. And then the last thing is just around climate and morale. When you're going through budget cuts like this, it just impacts the climate. And so I just want to acknowledge that we are kind of navigating that together. So this slide is not meant to be depressing. It's really more just to say, like, we just want to acknowledge it, put it out in the space so that people know that they are heard and seen, and most importantly, that they're valued. My closing is just going back to the picture from Sherwood Forest, is just about looking to the future. And I'll just say, I know this to be true because of what we've been able to get through in the past, but we're going to make it through this. We've made it through really hard times before, COVID being the most recent, but we've made it through very challenging times before. Not just in education, but in life. I mean, people's journeys in this country, the things that generations have gone through, from world wars to slavery and all of that stuff, people have made it through very challenging times. We're going to make it through this challenging time, and we're going to come out of it and be in a place of thriving. And so I just want to project that to the community. We're going to make it. We have very smart and hardworking people. We have students like our robotics kids who came, but also Rohan who came and spoke. They're the future. Like, if that's the future, we are in really good hands, really, really good hands. And us as adults, we're just going to band together and we're going to fight for our kids, and we're going to be fine. So I just want to say thank you to the community for kind of banding together, for supporting each other, for helping us think about the best way forward together. And because of our community and our kids, we're going to make it through and have a bright future in the Bellevue School District. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, so I think it's time for, let's see, do we want to do a motion and then some discussion and then a vote? All right, so first, I'm going to need the motion. Do we have a motion prepared?
A motion to consider the superintendent's spitting reduction plan proposal.
Second.
To consider it or approve it? Yeah.
To approve.
Okay. Okay, we got a second. So now we're going to open it to some discussion before we vote.
Point of
so-
order. Can we establish how much time we're going to have and how many cycles at the outset this time?
Okay. I don't know. Let's see. It's quarter of, and this part of the thing was supposed to run until 6. So we have 15
minutes, 3 minutes each.
3 minutes each. Okay. And that doesn't really give us time to whip back around. So let's just try to limit it to 3 minutes each. So who would like to go first? And he's got the timer, so that's great. If nobody wants to go first, I'll go first. Oh, you want to? Okay, so what I wanted to do with my 3 minutes is do a quick run through of some repetition of what Dr. Armaki has already said that I have pulled out from comments that I've gotten from people where I feel like people don't understand things. So let me see if I can zip on through here. I'm losing seconds as we go. But the federal pandemic ESSER funding ended, but the needs didn't. So this is part of how do we get in this situation. And then we all know from our home lives about inflation in what we pay for insurance, in materials, even though we are in the co-op. So someone suggested we could save money by shopping on Amazon. No, I think we've got it with the co-op. And our expenses are just generally higher. We all know our taxes are high on our houses here in this district. But it doesn't all come back, and a lot of people think it must come all back. It doesn't come back. It comes back per student, and the funding was never really adequate especially for special needs and mental health. Anyway, you see, we get 0 for mental health. The question came up: shouldn't we just do all these things first and then worry about the fund balance? No, you see, we're number 3 on that list. If we don't, we got to get that fund balance up, because if we don't get off that list, we're going to lose local control of our school district. And so nobody wants that. And that's just the way the laws and things are constructed. Nobody of us here wants to cut these things. We recognize it's people's, it's jobs, and it's and bringing the teachers to the kids. Let's connect that up. It's the relationships, the learning relationships for the kids. No one wants to cut these things, but we have to. And also, I'd like to make the point that the federal government mandates certain things, like especially around some of the special needs process and stuff. But then we rely on the state to give us the funding, and they don't fund those things it's really the unfunded mandates. And I also wanted to clear up, we are not the city. I got an email from somebody telling me, stop all this cutting. Local governments need to just stop cutting. And I'm like, okay, you're confused. I mean, what I mean is we don't want to cut. We are in an environment that is forcing this on us. It's not like we're enjoying it. I also want to emphasize that language programs save schools. I want to make the point, especially to numerous people who emailed from Bennett, they can decide what the trade-offs are in their own reckoning. But if we didn't have these language programs, the Arabic, the Hindi, and the Japanese that's going in at Bennett, we were basically strongly thinking we would close Ardmore and send all those kids to Bennett. So, so please don't think of those as unnecessary. They bring revenue in. Each kid comes with revenue. Each kid that we pull back from homeschool, private school, or nearby districts. And we're trying not to poach all the nearby district people, but we can provide some opportunities, and it stabilizes our class sizes. So language program saves school. Oh, that's everything. Oh, phooey. All right. I had a lot more, but notice he covered most of them. But we can't run a side business to cover our costs, and we're not charging tuition, and I'll have to cover the rest of it later. Okay.
Sure, I'll go and I'll try to make it really quick. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Aramaki, and thank you to all of our students, our families, our partners in the community, our staff, for your patience throughout this process. It is devastating. It's a devastating reality, and we're in desperate need of state intervention. So I just want to offer that, and also just really wanted to say thank you to the students who have been advocating in Olympia. Your voices are powerful. And there's nothing like hearing directly from you, and it's really impactful. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. So I'll move really quickly, and I wanted to address the impact counselor. So I think reconsidering the reinstatement of some of the impact positions is the right move. I've heard from several people in our community just how important our INHAP teams are in helping to support students in our buildings. And I want our community to know that even with limited resources due to lack of funding from the state, we remain committed to supporting students' well-being. I do think that it's also worth noting that it is a priority in the restoration plan that you share with us as well. And I'm just really appreciative that we're able to bring some of those positions back. I also love that you're partnering with some of our local mental health organizations that you added earlier. But I am wondering if there will be an additional kind of a physical resource in each building that's available to students that kind of highlight some of the online counseling services that are available, mental health apps, or phone numbers. I know that I shared a few with a couple of folks a few weeks ago. And just want to also say that we do have resources and people in our district here who are subject matter experts and have access to additional resources. And I'm happy to share those offline, but I think that engaging our community could be of real benefit to us. One of the other things that I'd like to make sure that we do and request is that the board be updated on how things are going and especially how the changes are impacting students. So if we can agree and figure out what the timing might look like for that, that would be really appreciated. I'm going to skip the next one. And then the last thing that I'll just say is about the summit program. I'm really, really glad that we're preserving that. I'm sure that you all recall the student that came and spoke last week so eloquently about his experience in the program, and to hear just one story about how our amazing educators have helped to support that student was really impactful to me. And I know that there's a lot of research that shows how programs like this can help improve student self-esteem and their confidence and encourage them to engage more actively in their educational experience and belief in their own potential. So I'm just really glad that that's being preserved. And I'm right on time. That's it. Thank you.
Who's next? Director Ars?
Well, I can't talk that fast, but I'll try. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of our community that engaged in this whole process over the last 3 months. Our staff, our families, our students coming and sharing their thoughts and ideas and everything in between through the surveys, through the engagements, as well as the public comments. I think those were valuable and it helped us definitely adjust. And I appreciate all the adjustments that was made, especially around the, I was going to say the summit, as well as mental health and our family engagement specialists. I think those are valuable to our community, and it's been and it still is. I know that it's not funded by our state, but I think our community has made it very clear how valuable that is. I do also think that our community had made it very clear that mental health isn't just MHAT. They made it very clear that to have stability in mental health, we need to have a sense of belonging, and keeping our extracurricular activities, our specialists, our music, art, sports, as well as the language programs, our AL programs, and all the other things that makes us strong is a value to them and helps them stabilize themselves. I'm very thankful that our staff work so hard to listen and incorporate their thoughts into our decision-making process. And I appreciate all the fine adjustments that you made. I also wanted to kind of shout out to our legislators who we met earlier today, Dr. Block and Dr. Aramaki, and our chief of staff and I had a chance to speak with all of our legislators and partnering up with them and letting them know what the realities that we're facing. It's not a fun place. It's not where we want to be, but it is what we have to deal with. And I appreciate them working so hard to try to elevate the needs that we have, along with every other school district in our state, to bring some of that funding back that we've lost over the last several years.
Yeah, sorry. Because I don't see him, so it's not fair because he.
All by myself over here. We've been talking about this for a long time now, and I keep going back and forth between the anger and acceptance stages of grief. I bounce between the two. I recognize that there's a reality, and I'm mad about it, and I'm very unhappy. I also want to recognize the human toll. This budget deficit is going to hurt our staff, our administrators, our families, and we're going to do our best to minimize that and to protect the people we can. But there's no way to avoid it in this round. So the thing that makes me the most angry is that our current year cuts are not yet projected to hit to balance the budget for this year, and that we're still projecting to have a negative fund balance at the end of the year. That is very challenging to me. The budget we approved in August had a $17.6 million, we were told, fund balance. That turned out to be a bit of a incorrect. And we've continued to watch that fund balance projection decline. And we're now projecting in the most recent update to see the current projected year-end fund balance is negative $3.8 million. And it's very important that we not end the year with a negative fund balance. That will not be good. So that makes me wonder if there are opportunities to restore some of the cuts that or continue some of the cuts that you originally proposed. Your original budget proposal in November of this year identified $12.8 million in budget cuts. Based on the budget estimates I've seen, we've achieved $2.2 million of those cuts, and we're currently apparently targeting $6.5 million total over the year, rather than the 12.8 that were initially proposed. Related to the 24-25 proposal, first of all, if we can hit those numbers. It'll make everything better for next year. Second, split positions, I mentioned this to you, are by nature inefficient, especially if it's one person traveling between multiple sites. Having staff who are working a less than full FTE is a choice, and so they can make that choice. I'll just speed up and get to we're doing things that are consistent with our peer districts. Special education in Bellevue has consistently exceeded the costs in our peer districts. Historically, we've had slightly higher central office expenses than our peer districts, and I believe now we're coming into line or below our peer districts.
We're gonna have to either stop or modify our plan. Okay. Okay.
I do struggle with continuing to call it ESSER since everyone recognizes that that program was eliminated. I think that several people are correct that ESSER identified some really good ideas, and we're trying to keep those good supports for our students. On the MHAT piece, the one thing that I would say is that what I've heard from students is one of the biggest values of MHAT is that those people are in the schools and know the students and can therefore detect before they are in an emergency situation rather than waiting for that emergency to expose itself and then call in somebody, that they can have that proactive role. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Director Rogan, thank you for your generosity.
Happy to. It's always a little bit hard to go last again,
Yeah.
because so much has already been said. I don't want to repeat everything, but great appreciation, Dr. Aramaki, for the detailed information. We had a conversation on Monday about how much sometimes emotion can detract from intention as well as the real information that is involved in this decision. And I just appreciate the clarity. And I know there are many folks, PTA presidents plus, that are probably going to eagerly be wanting that copy of the most recent PowerPoint for those who have general membership meetings coming up. I really appreciate the fact that we were able to tweak it, and it was based largely on that additional feedback we received. So the power of community in our deep listening with parents, and especially the kids. Those stories, it was very impactful. So thank you, and continue to use your voice. It matters for us to make quality decisions and timely decisions. I wanted to just reinforce some potential untapped resource that we have in community and in our community. I know we do so much with PTASAs, with our philanthropy, with Bellevue Schools Foundation, but I think there's something out there about what might be untapped. You know, how can we partner with organizations differently, and not just the city, but beyond. And I just think pain can create opportunities and innovation. And I'm hopeful that we can see a light at the end of the tunnel as we're trying to create a new normal in Bellevue. Sadly, I'm a little worried about what's happening federally, and I think our new normal has potential for needing to shift in the future. So I think staying nimble with our decision-making, with our clarity of our vision, is going to continue to be critical. So I just had to put that out there too. I certainly want to continue to put the screws to the state to really make sure that they hear us. But at the same time, I think we need to be ready to be nimble at the federal level too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now I have a question for council. Is there something about this being such an important vote that it should be a roll call vote, or can we just do a aye nay thing?
You can elect to do it either way.
I'm inclined to do a roll call vote.
If you'd like to do a roll call vote, I'm happy to do the roll call for you so that you guys don't have to both do the roll call and vote.
Okay, all right, let's go with that.
I'm going to do it.
Alphabetical or one?
I'm going to do it numerically because that's how you're in front of me, and I don't want to try and figure out in the moment if Webster or Watson is first, because that's where I always have to stop and think when I'm emailing you. Director Block.
So we just vote aye or nay. That's aye.
Director Watson.
Aye.
Director Rogan.
Aye.
Director Webster.
Aye.
Director Aris.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And I am sorry to the people who are going to be losing their livelihoods. I am so sorry. Okay. That said, we now go on to our director discussion, where I'm hoping I can add after the fact some points. But anyway, who would like to, let's see, we have, I guess, 3 minutes each if we go a minute over. So who would like to go first on director discussion? Director Aras.
Well, I'll start with something positive here. I had the joy of attending the Sammamish robotics competition as a board director and also as a mentor, since I mentor multiple of the teams there. And it was a thrill to see all of our 6 high school teams make it to the final rounds of competition, and 3 of our teams won an award. Raman Robotics from Big Picture won an award for imagery. Newport NRG won the engineering award, and Sammamish for the 4th year in a row won the Impact Award. And for those who don't know what Impact Award, it is literally the highest award you could get, and which also puts them straight to the district championship. And it is, in order to win that award, it's a culmination of work of community engagement and how to give back and how to uplift for over 3 years. So it's not just one-time deal. It's about being consistent and persistent about giving back. And they've been doing a fantastic job in various different ways. So yes, it was kind of fun to see all of my students here cheering on. The other I want to talk about is I believe we all received an email from YouthLink advisor or a board member regarding that they would like to do a presentation to the board about their work on research about sense of belonging within our own schools. And I would like for us to have actually a quick discussion about that, whether we can make a time to hear our students and their efforts to make a difference in our district, and give them this allotted amount of time to present their findings. Is that be something that the rest of you be interested in listening to? Is that a thumbs up?
I think I'm definitely interested in hearing it. I just want to make sure that there's a transparent process so that all the different student groups that may have an interest in presenting to us know what that process is and have the opportunity to engage in it.
I agree. And I certainly agree with you. And I'm looking forward to hearing the findings and then it's also the suggestions that they have. And I agree with Director Block. I think that there needs to be a clear kind of pathway for other students as well, right? And so I think I wrote back and just said, hey, let's try to figure out together as a board in collaboration with district leadership when and what that could look like, but that we're interested. So
yeah. Step 1, we'll put the discussion of how we can have this discussion on the agenda planning to find the time to have the discussion as a board about how we want to handle this and then go forward from there. So, Mr. Harrison. Right. Okay. Who's next? Or, okay, Director Rogan.
This, by the way, that just reminds me of our conversation about student voice. You know, at the beginning of the year, are we going to be creating a system, a structure, a process? So here, it's come full circle. First and foremost, I just wanted to give a shout out to Rohan, our student who presented today. Just incredibly powerful speaker, 14 years old. Wait, what? Yeah. Okay, a quick departure. So I have an announcement to make, and I'm going to try and get through this. Got it in writing, so I'll stay focused. The board is aware. I've come to a very difficult decision. I'll be stepping down from the board in the coming weeks. As the board is aware, this has been an extremely difficult decision for me to make. However, there are increased priorities and opportunities with my family. I feel a need to shift more of my time and attention to those I love. I deeply value the work of this board. Our thoughtful leadership has provided clarity, positive acknowledgement of staff, deep questions that have stretched the conversations about student learning. I feel proud to have been an integral part of approving our 5-year strategic plan, ensuring the incorporation of we belong, we learn, and we lead. It's been infused into nearly all aspects of board business, and that's exciting. This thread of continuity, along with the use of our board-approved, equity-driven decision-making model, ensured a steady and focused leadership approach for our board governance, especially in light of our recent financial challenges. For me, it was critical to stay on as we completed this spending reduction plan. With this approval in place today, it made it much easier for me to step down. It's just the timing is right. So I'm passionate about this work to support our students, staff, and community in this amazing school district. I'm going to continue to find ways to advocate and be involved in our ongoing efforts. You never know, maybe I'll show up at public comment someday. I'll just end with deep, deep gratitude for this board. Their grace and commitment to our students' well-being and learning. Your individual and collective leadership is inspiring. Deep gratitude to Dr. Aramaki for his steadfast leadership and deep, deep care for this community. And gratitude to our amazing students whose voices have helped to inform our work and keep us grounded in our strategic plan. And lastly, to extend deep gratitude to our PTSA community and generous community partners for your ongoing support of our students and schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your service and stepping in to help us out when we needed you. All right. Am I next? Okay. I guess you have to start the clock. Let me say a fun thing. I am enjoying the multilingualism for all design team that I was assigned to by the superintendent. Anyway, I'm finding it very enjoyable to be around people who just love language and linguistics and people with various life experiences, and the students who show up and talk to us about, most recently we were asking them about their goals for their education and their goals for perhaps becoming multilingual. It is called multilingualism for all, but I will say that the idea is to provide access for everyone. We're not going to force everyone, right, to take a foreign language, but I hope you will. I hope you will. I don't think we call it foreign language anymore. We call it something else. Okay, muddling on. I wanted to share the concern about, let's stick to the budget. And that's why we're having like the workshop that we'll be having after this as a board. It's dismaying to feel that we are already still overspending. We have overspent some figures that we had from last summer when we had agreed, and we need to really, as a board, notice that and make the course corrections. So that's one thing. And then I wanted to shed some light on something I heard at a WASDA meeting about the state and the funding and the way people think in other parts of the country, because I went to this workshop and the leader, it was a workshop on how to negotiate with a union. Am I getting month in ICR? I don't know. But what he advised me in this meeting and the whole group was, don't worry about them, because the rest of the town resents them anyway, because their salaries are higher than everyone else who lives in your town. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so not applicable to Bellevue when we have people coming from far away. So that was just a little insight into how we, when people from all over the state are making these decisions about how schools could be funded, and how, if we don't really get any special concessions on our levy, in terms of being able to do a cost of living in there, that just really struck me. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that for the people who said, let's cut non-essential services, but they didn't define those, what they thought was non-essential. I feel like everything that's not essential to one person is essential to another person in terms of like keeping kids in school for that elective that really keeps them coming, the CTE that may lead to a life opportunity. We've got kids being hired right out in our like in the welding program. And I also would end with the world's greatest violinist has never held a violin. And our 5th grade program gives that opportunity to some kids whose parents either weren't able or didn't think of it. All right, that's my last second. Who's next?
I'll steal it.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of great stuff that's going on. We're past the end of the first semester. It's exciting to hear about the robotics program and all their achievements. Winter sports have all ended in the last month and spring sports are getting started. I know that my youngest just picked up his track uniform on Wednesday and they did pictures and I saw a lot of team pictures being taken. It's all very exciting. I love to celebrate those sports. As Director Aras mentioned, the legislative session is well underway. We're actively engaging with our legislators. They are working hard and understand the issues in our district and across the state. The state budget is definitely going to be a challenge for them to try to bring us funds, but we are very engaged. What can people do at the individual level? Well, there are fundraisers. It is an opportunity. Bellevue Schools Foundation's fundraisers, April 19th. This is also auction season for many, many PTSAs across the district. I recognize that different schools have very different abilities to raise money. Bellevue Schools Foundation is a great equalizer across the district and helps ensure that we can provide things in all our schools. Also want to recognize the 2 working groups that I'm associated with, although this week I was double booked twice, so couldn't go to either one. But the Environmental Sustainability Working Group has been doing a lot of work on coming up with good ways to measure and report and achieve sustainability improvements, as well as some outreach through Instagram and others. And the Welcome Center continues to make progress. I'm going to use my last minute to just describe what I see as an analogy for where we are right now. When I think of how the school district is being led, Dr. Aramaki's got his hands firmly on the steering wheel. The school board's somewhere in the front seat, all 5 of us sitting together in the front seat. And when things are going well, we're all paying attention to all the things that are out the window and making sure that we can focus on them. Right now, it's like we're in a rainstorm and it's dark at night and we can't see as much as we should be able to see. So we are almost certainly missing things right now that we should be catching because we're having to focus so much on the budget. And I want to make sure that we're doing what we can to catch those other things. In addition, we as a school board are starting to do things that aren't great. We're turning off the music to try to focus attention back on that budget so we can see it. We're calling out things that we see and opportunities we see, and that's distracting. We know that. We know that's not what we want to be doing, but that's kind of where we're at because of the level of urgency that it's gotten to. And I know that that's not great, but that's kind of the situation as I see it. Thanks.
So I just want to start by thanking you, Director Rogan, for your service. And as you embark on your next chapter, know that we wish you well. And I know that you're going to go on to do great things and love to see you at public comment. All right. So just a couple of updates that I have. Registration for the Rainier Athletes Yearly Fundraising Shape the Future event that will take place on April 26th from 5:30 to 9:30. Right here in our own backyard at Hidden Valley Fieldhouse is going to be a great time. It's always fun. I had a great time last year. So board, please add that to your schedule so that we can go and support Rainier athletes. I'll also be casting my vote for the WASDA Interscholastics Activities Advisory on the 19th of this month. I sent all of you all information last week, so they're in your inboxes. But they can also be found on the WASDA website as well for our community. And just a reminder that the WIAA Representative Assembly will vote on April the 19th, and each proposal will need a 60% vote to pass. The rules go into effect on August the 1st of 2025, and any proposals that go against Washington state law will not be adopted. So that's just an update on where we are with that. And then lastly, but the most exciting thing I think is that I'm really looking forward to the play at International School tomorrow night. So thank you to those students for inviting us. That's it.
Okay, so if that's everybody for now, I say for now because we're going to have a break, and then the board is going to be in a study session. So we're going to take a break now, which will go until 6:30. And then we're going to go into a study session to talk about finance and budget, but it's for the recent month, trying to keep us on track, not for going forward stuff. Okay, so we're in recess or break.